Welcome to Purpose. I'm your host, Corie Clark. I'm just a normal girl who decided to go for it. I created a thriving business from the ground up without sacrificing my sanity, and I believe that you can do the same. You were created on purpose, for a purpose, and I fully believe you can turn that purpose into profit. Each week, I'm going to bring you practical advice to help you live your life and grow your business on purpose. Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of Purpose. I'm your host, Corie Clark, and on today's episode, I had the pleasure of interviewing one of my dear friends, Angie McPherson. Angie is a wedding photographer and a branding photographer for creatives. And she also is starting to teach her expertise to other photographers on how to become a branding photographer. So today's episode is really awesome because whether you are a photographer or a personal brand, Angie has some amazing tips for us and why branding photography is so important no matter what it is that you are doing or selling on Instagram. It's just so important. And Angie just really dives in and teaches us some great tips on branding, personal branding, and photography, and what we need and why we need it. So let's jump into the interview. All right, you guys, I'm so excited to introduce you to my dear friend, Angie. She is a photographer and a branding specialist, and I'm just so excited to have you on the show today, Angie.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm just so honored, so honored, and I love your podcast. Oh my gosh, so thank you for having me.
Of course. So I guess just why don't you go ahead and share with us what exactly, I just said you're a photographer, so That's obvious, but you've kind of shifted. And so let us know kind of that story of how you got started and what you're starting to do now.
Yeah, so I've been a wedding photographer for over 6 years. And about a year and a half ago, I started educating on marketing because my background before I quit my big girl job and went into photography was marketing for about 8 years. So I went into marketing and branding and doing in-person workshops and online things and things like that. But I still love, of course, the photography side. So I started to realize my own business when I started to show more of, myself, so headshots and fun photos, things like that, everything shifted. It was like I was using my photography as a marketing tool, for myself, for my own business. And I really started to notice it when I tried to shift my Instagram to more, lifestyle and more putting myself out there. And I was like, what photos can I use to help me connect with ideal clients instead of just posting photos of my portfolio work, which is, brides and my bouquets and things like that. I was like, I need this to be more about me because there's a million other wedding photographers out there, especially in my market. And we all have very similar pricing, even similar work. And any industry you find, you're going to have people that do kind of the same thing that you do. And I was realizing the thing that shifted my business and helped me to grow was putting more of myself out there instead of just my work. Because if someone's looking for a wedding photographer, we all look the same. But when they go to my page, there's photos of me and my son and me traveling and doing all these fun things. And that's going to make them remember me over the other person who just has portfolio work. So I started to see the shift in my business and people started noticing as well, hey, can I get some headshots? And, can I get some of these fun photos that you do? So I started to really notice that big shift in my business and people noticing me for me instead of just the portfolio work I was putting out there. So other people started to notice and ask me, for headshots and these fun branding photos. And I realized that this is really going to step up the game for a lot of people. And so I created, a branding photography package where it's just more than headshots. It's, me diving into your brand and seeing what your brand story is and seeing your goals for having these photos. And a lot of people just don't even know how to use them. They get these photos and they're like, okay, great. Now I can post a photo of you on Instagram, but that's just half of the equation. We have to learn how to speak to our clients and really get them to relate to us and connect to us. So I just noticed a huge shift. And my clients that I've gotten over the past year and a half or two doing this have totally revamped their websites, revamped their social media, their feeds, helped with, if they're interviewing on podcasts or they're featured on a blog post, they have some really great photos to use. Whereas before they just had portfolio work and that was it. And so I just love it. I love it so much. And I think it's like kind of a new niche. And so I'm trying to get more photographers to do this so that we can help a lot of, entrepreneurs and influencers and, help people show up online. So I've definitely seen the shift and my clients have seen the shift. So I'm excited to talk more about, how those things can
Yeah.
change.
That is so awesome. And honestly, like I can see it. I 100% agree. Everything you said is right because a lot of times, and I do see the shift. Like I love when I see a photographer's feed that is not just their portfolio because
Right.
if I'm going to choose a photographer, which just FYI, Angie does not live next to me. If she did, she would be my photographer. So whenever she's in California, of course, last time she was booked solid.
I know, I was booked. I'll be back in August.
Okay, let's like book it now. But it's the truth, like, because when I am looking for a photographer, it's honestly not about like having the perfect photos. It's like making sure I know who they are and that we will like work together well. And
Right.
it's just so important for me to have a connection with the person and not just show up to a shoot and have no clue who it is because
Right.
I have done that and the experience has not been great.
Right.
So I 100% like love what you're doing. I think it's amazing. And so for someone like me or like entrepreneurs, people that are in this online space, like what sort of like what tips do you have for them? Like why do they need like to have these branded photo shoots?
Yeah, definitely. So I love that you said it helped you connect with people to see those photos of them because that's the number one way that it's going to help you is to do half of the marketing just with a great photo and a great great content next to it because I have a client who's a lawyer and you look for lawyers and you kind of look for reviews and you look for what they offer, but now that she has all these awesome branding photos, you go to her Instagram and you immediately connect with her. She's
Yeah.
giving you tips, legal tips, and I'm actually paying attention instead of just a legal mumbo jumbo. I'm like, wow, this girl, she's working on her computer, and I'm getting a visual of what it's like to go into her office and work with her. It makes me want to book her. In comparison to any other lawyer that might have an Instagram, and it's just a bunch of legal jargon. I don't connect with that. I connect with the person, and so it's a way as an entrepreneur having these branding photos. It's a way to immediately get people to connect to you before they even inquire with you, because getting the inquiry is a whole nother level. You can post on Instagram. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm posting every day, but nothing's converting. Nobody's showing up in my inbox." I'm like, well, are you putting yourself out there or are you just hiding behind your work? So having these custom branding photos that are branded to your business, and it helps with brand recognition. So, getting the inquiry is another part of, booking people. So people will say, I post on Instagram, I post on my blog, but it's not converting. People are looking at it, but they're not converting. And I'm questioning what photos and what captions are you using to get people into your inbox? Because if you're just posting your portfolio work, like I said, it's not really engaging. It's not, you have to put out that call to action to get people first to comment and engage with your content. And the
Yeah.
more that they engage with your content, the more welcoming and approachable you are. The more they're going to slide into your DMs, and they're more going to slide into your email inbox because they already feel that connection with you. So that's just one way that branding photos can help convert people.
What sort of advice do you have for somebody like you who's a photographer and they really want to branch out into the branding photo world because it's definitely growing fast? And how can they start to offer that service and like kill it?
Yeah, I would definitely say, so there are a lot of photographers who, email me and DM me like, oh, this is great. I want to start offering this in my market. And I'm like, you've got to get to know the clients. It's not just to show up, let's take headshots in different locations. You have to know their brand. You have to ask them who their ideal client is, what their goals are for their shoot. So many people will show up, well, not anymore, but I have like an e-guide that I send to my clients. And I'm like, okay, what props, align with your brand? What do you work with? What's the vibe of the location? Are we shooting in a coffee shop? Are we shooting in your home? Are we shooting at the beach? So the mindset shift that photographers need to have when shooting, just portrait work versus branding work is you have to be the marketer and the photographer. You have to realize what that person is trying to do because you're giving them a huge return on investment. You're not just giving them photos to put up in their house. They need to be making money with each photo that they post. If they post
Yeah.
something on their blog or a website, that is a revenue generating photo because it's creating that connection for them to be able to have people inquire with them. So that's just my huge advice for photographers trying to get into it. Lose the portrait work mode where you're just trying to take a pretty photo for over the fireplace and get into the marketing mode.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so it really is, it's almost like storytelling. Do you feel like that's what it is? Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, people will ask, how often should I get branding photos done? I always recommend at least twice a year. Quarterly will really set you up, but do it more than once because you have different stories from throughout the year. I take them quarterly for myself. So I did a summer shoot last year and we, went to a friend's house who had a pool and put on a bunch of floppy hats from Kohl's, and we made sure they were, branded to Kohl's so we can tag them in all the photos and things like that. And so, that was my story for summer. Summer's here, wedding season's kind of at a little bit of a halt. So I'm by the pool, I'm at Busch Gardens with my son, I'm drinking, a Mai Tai. So that was my story for the summer, whereas fall, I'm knee deep in wedding season. And so you have to think about where you are for each shoot. It's not just like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to get great headshots for Instagram. What season are you in? What story are you trying to tell? In January, all of our stories we're in hustle mode. We're getting ready to plan the year. We're excited. So those are the coffee shop photos and the planning photos, getting up my personal, my planner that you have, the purposeful guide. Like I took a lot of branding photos with that at the start of the year because that's the season I'm in. I'm planning, I'm getting ready. So it changes per season. So with every shoot that you do, there's probably going to be a different story. Of course, there's an overall story of what you do, who you serve, the experience that you provide, but we also have seasonal stories that keep people connected to us. So it's not just the same repetitive thing over and over and over.
Yeah, that's so true. That's really good. I do try to get mine done about quarterly, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, like your story changes a lot throughout the year. And while like I have this over, whatever, this like umbrella of purpose but like I'm always doing something different. And that's so true and so important. Wow. Gosh, I love this. I love listening to you and learning from you because I start getting all these ideas of like things I want to do for my branding shoots and stuff like that. So now how important do you feel like having a perfect Instagram feed is?
Oh man. It really depends on, oh my goodness, this is such a good question. It really depends on what you do. For me, I have to because I'm a photographer. I can't have a non-aesthetic feed because people will question my ability. So if your brand is very visual and product based, like say you offer products, you should definitely have a beautiful feed because having kind of a messy feed, I'm going to get flack for this, but having messy.
Okay, because everybody has a different opinion.
Yeah. And like I said, it depends on what you do. If you have a product that you're providing or you have a visual service, so let's say you're doing hair and makeup, you need to be, those are the services who need to have an aesthetic feed because you are selling a visual and you're trying to show people this is what I can provide to you, this is how this will be helpful to you. And if your feed is a mess, it's not gonna help with the trust, like the know, like, and trust factor. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing something completely different where it's just if you're your brand, like you're an influencer or you're not really selling a specific product or your product is just a bunch of different things, it doesn't have to be perfect. As long as the only thing that needs to be consistent is how often you're posting, the way you're speaking, you're having good call to actions. As far as the photos, I only recommend people who have a very visual sell to have a visually aesthetic feed. But anybody else, as long as everything else is consistent, it's fine.
Yeah, because I've kind of like changed my opinion on it, but I agree 100%. If you're a photographer or like hairstylist, like you said, like, you have to be showing like beautiful work because that's your service. Exactly. I just was getting so worn out with having a perfect feed. So it's funny because I said like, oh, I'm changing, but I'm still pretty like happy about it. And I have some presets to help at least make my own iPhone photos look like they match. So it's not like I've completely thrown having a beautiful feed out the window, but I'm just trying to be more, personal on my feed. I just feel like Instagram has changed and every social platform changes. And like we're actually recording this the day after like the big Facebook,
I
Instagram
know.
shut down. Like,
I know.
everybody didn't know what the heck to do anymore. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. I love the flexibility of it, but I think that that's part of like having some branding shoots is
Right.
it gives you a lot of content to like filter into your feed and break
Yes.
things up a bit. So someone,
Yeah, and in a short amount of time.
yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so someone who is like, let's say like a hairstylist or makeup artist or something like that, a lot of them, like all you see is hair pictures, which is awesome because you want to like, I totally like scroll and make sure like, man, make sure this girl knows how to do blonde because,
Right.
um, but I do think like I haven't really seen a lot that do stuff about themselves. So do you have
Yeah.
like any tips for someone like that?
Absolutely. And makeup and hair is you have to have branding photos because you're literally posting other women all day, every day. And
Yeah.
so when I'm looking locally for a makeup artist and I type in a hashtag, Virginia hairstyle or makeup artist or hairstylist, and I go to these people's feeds and I'm like, which one is you? Like all I see are your beautiful clients' faces and their hair. I can never figure out who these people are. And if I do find a feed where, I'm looking at the first 9 photos and it's beautiful hair, a photo of her working in her office, beautiful hair, a photo of her with her child, I'm like, wow, like this is awesome. That's who she is. That's what she does on the weekends. These are her clients. This is her, portfolio. But if I'm just scrolling down and it's just the same photo in front of a ring light of different females' faces the whole time, I do not connect with that whatsoever. So
Yeah.
just sprinkling in, I'm not saying your whole feed should look like, Kim Kardashian with just you every photo. I'm just saying sprinkling in these branded photos of you, of,
Yeah.
your props and what you're doing. And also your clients will really help people to remember you.
I love that. I think that's great advice. So all of you hairstylists and estheticians and makeup artists, like I do think it's very important. And I want to know who same with the photographers. I want to know the person behind that talent and
Right.
behind that service if I'm going to be using them. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you still are doing like weddings
Yes.
and the full on photography business, but you are also offering like new services to help other photographers, correct?
Yes, I am, because when I started posting all these things, half of my DMs and engagement were, "Oh my gosh, I want to hire you. How do I do this?" And the other half of photographers, "How do I get into this? Nobody's doing this in my market." And I'm like, "Yes, start now while nobody's there." Can you imagine being the first wedding photographer in your market? Like, I think this is just going to blow up. And I think the more the further we go down the year and New Year's, like everyone's going to be online and everyone's going to want to show up online. So I feel like we need to have more of us that are ready to help people. So I do have a course. I'm running it right now, and it's going to relaunch in the spring. And it's just a course for photographers who are looking to expand into this. So if you're looking to completely shift your business into personal branding photography, or you're just looking to start offering it as a service, we are in there talking about marketing and helping your clients plan, which is a huge question I get. They say, "Great, I can shoot this, but I don't know how to prepare my clients. I don't know how to get prepared." So we've been working on all of that. And I'm just loving the people in my course, and they post their photos and they post their experiences. And I'm just all about making that impact, like impact with the photographers, but also impact in entrepreneurship and having people show up online in a more professional way.
Yeah, it's so true. And I seriously, like, I see your stuff and I'm like, well, I wish I was a photographer so I can learn how to do this. I do not need to add anything else to my plate. I will just keep hiring the photographers.
Right.
But I think it's amazing what you're doing. And you're so right on, because the online space and being like, whether it's a personal brand or a product, it doesn't really matter. Everything is so visual, and everything, like, yes, you have to build your email list, blah, 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 but
Right.
your people are seeing your Instagram and your Facebook and whatever else it is. And so that like visual branding is so important, and people are starting to realize that. And I feel like good branding photographers are hard to come by right now. There's a ton of amazing photographers, but getting that whole branding aspect down is, like you said, it's very different. You have to like shift your mindset. And so I think it's amazing that you are teaching these photographers this, because I think it is like, it's like the next wave of the future of photography, because
Right.
everybody's got their own brand. You know what I mean?
Right,
Even if it's not their business. I mean, how many girls have Instagrams that, like,
right.
you know what I mean? Like they would be willing
Totally.
to get a branding shoot. And so
Mhm.
I think you're like right on. I'm really excited about what you're offering.
Well, thank you. I'm so excited, and I love seeing the shift. I love seeing people, in my DMs and commenting on my stories that this has motivated them to get pictures done, and it's motivated them to come out of their shell and stop hiding behind their work. I
Hmm.
love it. I love it.
Yeah. So cool.
Yay!
Okay. So, do you have like anything that you want to offer my listeners, like any sort of freebie or guide or whatever?
Yeah, I do have a free checklist, and I'll get you the link so they can download it. It's a
Okay.
personal branding photography, just kind of a checklist of what kind of photos that you can have. So many people will hire a photographer or just go out and try to get their Instagram husband to shoot the photos, but they don't know what photos to have. And so
That's awesome.
when you think of personal brand photography, you think of, oh, me with my laptop, me with a cup of coffee, but there's so many other options that can really set you apart. So I do have a checklist, just free checklist PDF, one page that'll help people start to plan, their shot list, basically.
Okay. Awesome. So I will put that in the show notes. And so that is for someone like me, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
who's not a photographer, but technically a photographer could
Oh,
download that
photographers
too.
download this
Yeah.
all the time. It
Okay.
helps them so much. So
Helps them. Yeah.
anyone who's looking to have photos taken or to take these photos for someone, it is a huge help.
Yes. So if you're interested in any way, shape, or form in growing your brand or helping someone else grow theirs,
Right.
like this is for you. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So, okay. Well, not quite yet. I have a
Oh,
couple more
yeah.
questions.
Oh, of course. I'm here, girl. I'm
No.
here.
Okay. So I have two questions that I ask everybody at the end of their interview. So
Okay.
the first question is, what is one piece of advice that you would give someone who is like starting out in business?
Ooh, I would say to just show up. Just show up wherever you are, whether that be in your blog and your social media. So many people start this business and they just hustle quietly behind the scenes. And I'm just like, no, show everyone what you're doing. Take them on the journey. When I started offering, personal branding as a service, I started documenting everything with videos and Instagram stories and really getting people excited about it. The more you are publicly excited about your business, the more other people will be as well. So don't hustle, at 5 a.m. with your coffee in the dark. Show everybody what you're doing and get them excited.
Yeah, I love that. It is so important to show up. And it sometimes is one of the hardest things to do.
It is. It
So
is.
that is great advice. Okay. And then the last question is, what does living on purpose mean to you?
Oh man, that's a good question. Um, it means for me to really just choose the joy and the happiness in whatever I'm doing, and be purposeful about that. So I'm saying no to a lot of things if it doesn't bring me joy and happiness, and that is me living on purpose and not just by default or like I should be doing these things because it's something that mom should do or wife should do or entrepreneurs should do. I choose things that bring me so much joy and happiness because we can all fall into the day-to-day, not saying that I'm a bad wife or mom or entrepreneur, but I'm living my life on my own terms,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just going with what everyone else is doing or what seems to be standard. And it makes me a happier wife, a happier mom, a happier entrepreneur when I can just kind of choose my schedule, choose, what I want to put out there on social media, or choose, what our family's doing that weekend, instead of just doing what it seems like the norm should be. So living my life on purpose is just kind of being in control of my life, not my husband's or my son's, but what makes me happy day to day.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. That's so true. And I
Yeah.
love when you said, not by default. And
Right.
it's easy to go into that default mode. And that's why we have to really be intentional about like finding that what our joy is and what our
Right.
passion is. So
Right.
awesome. Okay. So where can people find you?
Yeah, so just my website is angiemcpherson.com. And I'm always on the gram, always on Instagram, and it's Angie Janine because Angie McPherson was taken. So just my first and middle name. And I'm there doing stories and videos and all the fun things.
Yes. And you guys have to follow Angie. She's so fun to follow. She's got it down. Her stories are fun and entertaining. She's always doing behind the scenes and she has a beautiful feed. So you've got to follow her. I will link all of that in the show notes. And thank you so much for being on the show, Angie.
Thanks for having me, Corie.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening, you guys. I hope you enjoyed learning from Angie as much as I did. You can find all of Angie's information in the show notes. Go to corieclark.com/15 and you can find all the places to follow Angie, to learn from Angie if you are a photographer. And I just want to thank you guys for tuning into the show. If you haven't yet, could you do me a favor and go to iTunes and subscribe to the show and leave a review? I would greatly appreciate it. I will be back here this Friday with a bonus episode of Purpose. Thanks so much for listening, you guys, and have a great day.